In June 2025, Los Angeles was gripped by tension, waiting for a storm that had been brewing for months. The White House shattered the uneasy calm. President Trump announced the deployment of 700 U.S. Marines and 4,000 National Guard soldiers to LA to assist ICE in a massive deportation drive. For many Angelenos, this felt like an occupation, not liberation. Military convoys on the freeways and soldiers setting up posts in a city built by immigrants was surreal, almost dystopian. The move bypassed state authorities, provoking outrage from California's leaders, who saw it as a flagrant abuse of power. Governor Newsom condemned the deployment, and legal challenges were prepared immediately. Los Angeles was no longer just a city, it had become the epicenter of a national battle over immigration, power, and identity. The federal operation was swift and aggressive, a dragnet, not targeted enforcement. On June 4th, ICE agents, backed by military support, arrested over 2,200 people in LA in a single day, prioritizing numbers over nuance. Officially, the raids targeted those with serious criminal convictions, but in reality, many with no record or only minor infractions were swept up. Even those enrolled in government compliance programs, wearing ankle monitors, checking in regularly, were arrested, shattering trust in the system. Raids hit the lifeblood of the immigrant economy: day laborers at Home Depot, garment workers in the fashion district. The message was clear: there were no safe spaces. For the administration, these raids were a show of strength. For those caught, they were devastating, tearing families and communities apart. The city's immigrant heart was under siege. The deployment ignited a political firestorm, pitting Trump directly against California's Democratic leadership. Trump cast LA as lawless, using the military to project strength and rally his base. Governor Newsom and Attorney General Bonta fought back, calling the move dictatorial and launching a lawsuit over federalizing the National Guard without consent. LA officials, including Mayor Karen Bass, accused the administration of manufacturing chaos and trampling on states' rights. The city became a stage for a national drama, with immigrant families' futures hanging in the balance. The choice of LA was deliberate, a symbol of progressive values, now a prop in a high-stakes political theater. The conflict dominated headlines, deepening the nation's divide. The raids sparked not silence, but a wave of defiant protests that swept through Los Angeles like wildfire. The city, already simmering with tension, erupted as news of the arrests spread from neighborhood to neighborhood. Arrests at Home Depot and the garment factory ignited marches across LA, downtown, Boyle Heights, the fashion district, where thousands chanted, "You are not alone," and "ICE out of LA." The streets filled with people from all walks of life, students, workers, parents, and elders, united in outrage and hope. As federal forces held their ground, confrontations escalated. Protesters locked eyes with agents in riot gear, neither side willing to back down. The air was thick with tension, every moment threatening to tip into chaos. Tear gas, rubber bullets, and burning cars became symbols of the city's fury. Sirens wailed through the night as the line between protest and confrontation blurred, and the city's anger burned bright and visible. Protesters formed human chains to block ICE vans, entire families marching together. Children clung to their parents, their faces a mix of fear and determination, as communities stood shoulder to shoulder in resistance. Maria Gutierrez, whose cousin was detained, declared, "This is not a riot, this is a defense. We have to fight back." Her words echoed through the crowd, capturing the pain and resolve of so many who had lost loved ones to the raids. Over 50 protesters were arrested, deepening the rift between residents and authorities. Each arrest fueled more anger, more resolve, as the community watched their neighbors taken away. The use of force against citizens protesting their own government tore at the city's civic trust. Images of officers clashing with peaceful demonstrators spread quickly, igniting debates in homes and on social media. The city's fabric was fraying as LA's residents faced the power of the state head-on. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks watching the chaos unfold, wondering what would come next. The battle for Los Angeles was now in the streets, a struggle not just for justice, but for the soul of the city itself. Behind the headlines were personal stories, families fighting for survival. Every day, ordinary people faced extraordinary challenges, their lives upended by policies and raids that seemed distant until they struck home. For many, the struggle was not just about laws or politics, but about holding on to the people they loved most. Elena, a mother of 3, protested after her husband was arrested at Home Depot. "He is not a criminal. He is a father," she told reporters. Her voice, trembling with emotion, echoed the pain of countless families suddenly separated. For Elena, every day became a battle to keep her family together, to shield her children from fear, and to demand justice in a system that often felt indifferent. Carlos, a DACA recipient, searched desperately for his missing father. "I am American in every way except on paper. Now my country has taken my father." His story was one of thousands, each marked by uncertainty and heartbreak. For young people like Carlos, the fight was not just for their own future, but for the right to keep their families whole. Community centers became organizing hubs, neighbors supporting each other, business owners closing shops to join marches. Churches opened their doors, offering sanctuary and hope. Volunteers cooked meals, watched children, and helped families navigate a maze of legal challenges. In these spaces, strangers became allies, united by a shared sense of injustice and a determination to protect their own. The movement was fueled by the belief that these were not faceless illegals, but parents, workers, neighbors, integral to LA's fabric. Each protest sign carried a story, each chant a plea for recognition and respect. The city's streets filled with voices demanding that families be seen, heard, and valued. Protesters argued the government's actions were cruel and self-defeating, tearing apart families and trust. The pain of separation rippled through entire communities, leaving scars that would last for generations. Many wondered how a city built by immigrants could turn its back on its own. Maria Gutierrez put it simply, "What law is just that breaks a family? We are here to make them see the faces they're hurting." Her words captured the heart of the movement, a demand for compassion, for justice, and for the recognition of shared humanity. The fight was for family, dignity, and the soul of the city. In the glow of candlelight vigils and the roar of protest marches, Los Angeles stood at a crossroads, its future shaped by those who refused to let their loved ones be forgotten. Not all Angelenos opposed the crackdown. In fact, for many, the federal raids were a long-awaited response to what they saw as years of unchecked lawlessness. As news of the enforcement actions spread, some residents felt a sense of relief, believing that finally their concerns were being heard. Many supported the federal action, seeing it as overdue enforcement of the law. At town halls and on street corners, supporters gathered, holding signs and voicing their approval. They argued that laws exist for a reason, and that ignoring them undermines the very fabric of society. One, a naturalized citizen and former undocumented immigrant, said, "I did it the right way. I waited, I worked hard, and I followed the process. It wasn't easy, but it was fair. If you are here illegally, you broke the law. That's just the truth, and it's not fair to those of us who followed the rules." The ICE agents have a job to do. For Juan and others like him, the presence of federal agents was not a threat, but a sign that the system was finally working as intended. Some legal immigrants felt others should follow the same path they did. They spoke of the sacrifices, the paperwork, and the years spent waiting for approval. To them, the law was not just a barrier, but a gateway to belonging. Native-born residents like Susan voiced frustration. "Our schools are crowded, our emergency rooms are full. We're struggling to keep up with the needs of everyone." It feels like the city cares more about those here illegally than its own citizens. For Susan, the issue was about fairness and resources, not just legality. For these Angelenos, the raids were about restoring order and fairness, not cruelty. They believed that enforcing the law was essential to maintaining trust in government and protecting their communities. Images of burning cars and looting reinforced their belief that federal intervention was necessary. To them, chaos on the streets was proof that something had to change. They saw ICE and the military as restoring authority, not occupying the city. The sight of uniforms brought reassurance, not fear, to those who felt abandoned by local leaders. Their call, enforce the law, even in chaos. For them, it was about upholding the rules that hold society together, no matter how turbulent the times. The conflict wasn't simply pro-immigrant versus anti-immigrant. Support for enforcement came from naturalized citizens and even within Latino communities, dividing families and neighbors. Some Trump supporters grew uneasy with the scale and harshness of the LA operation, fearing it crossed a line. Republican leaders like Ileana Garcia criticized the indiscriminate tactics, calling for a more measured approach. Even within ICE, leadership changes signaled internal turmoil over the agency's mission and morality. The debate was not just external, but within the government itself. LA's perfect storm exposed the complexity and fractures beneath the surface. Los Angeles was the epicenter, but not the only battleground. Similar raids played out nationwide as the Trump administration challenged sanctuary cities from Chicago to New York. California's resistance, laws limiting local cooperation with ICE, made LA the ultimate test case for federal power. The crisis forced cities everywhere to confront their own preparedness and commitment to sanctuary policies. The events in LA crystallized America's deep divisions, one vision prioritizing sovereignty and law, the other, humanitarian values and inclusion. The confrontation was more than policy, it was a battle over national identity. LA became a mirror, reflecting a fractured nation. As the protests faded, a fragile calm settled over LA, but fear and uncertainty lingered. Families faced daunting futures, fighting deportation orders, often without their primary breadwinners. Legal and political battles will continue, with the city's relationship to state and federal government deeply damaged. LA's resilience and divisions were laid bare, and healing will require dialogue between people with vastly different views. The city's leaders must balance reassuring terrified communities and addressing calls for law and order. What happens next in LA will shape the nation's future, as the city's struggle becomes a test for American democracy. The unsettled dust in Los Angeles is a reflection of a nation still struggling to define itself.